It's TK Friday, and you're watching The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Today I want to explore Blend Diff and the layer mask calculator. This will be an introduction and basics. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It is TK Friday, and today I'll be working with the new TK9 plugin for Photoshop. By the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, you can use my promo code DK15, which normally gives you 15% off, but now through the end of August 31st, 2023, that DK15 will get you 25% off the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, along with training videos. I highly recommend that you pick up Sean's new button by button training video. It goes over TK9 in great detail, button by button. Lots of great information. I highly recommend it. When you use my promo code DK15, you're helping to support The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. When you use that code, I do make a small commission, and this helps me to keep these videos coming to you each and every week. And thank you all out there for using my promo code DK15. Thank you very much. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to start out with Blend Diff, but also I'll be doing a small edit just to incorporate some of the things I'm showing you here today. But don't forget to download my PDF notes. It'll give you step-by-step for this edit. It's a small edit. It's only 7 steps. And there's also an image that goes with the notes, so you can use those notes as a reference and try the edit out for yourself. I don't know about you, but I'm excited about the new Blend Diff features built into the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. But there's 2 different blend diffs that we can work with. We have the one up here in the multi-mask panel. Actually, they're both in the multi-mask panel. One is up here in the mask generation section right here. This will generate blend diff masks, or you can output the blend diff layers as well, and I'll show you that. And then we have this button right here, which will apply blend diff right to a layer. And then you can also edit any blend diff layers that you have. So that's really nice. For all you TK8 users out there, don't be afraid of TK9, because TK9 works very similar to the way TK8 did, but it has new features, okay? So don't be afraid of it. Go ahead and jump in, because my TK Fridays will get you up to speed on everything. But today, let's tackle some Blend If and some Combo CX mask calculation. Let's take a look at Blend If. Now, if I click on this button right here, it's Blend If. We have another button right here for Blend If. This is for editing blend diff on a layer. So we'll get to that in a minute, but first off, we're going to look at this one. We're going to click it. This will enable us to make blend diff masks. And what's really nice about it, you're actually seeing what the mask would look like, okay, in black and white. You know, black conceals, white reveals. Shades of gray in between will reveal or conceal to a certain amount, a certain level, okay, depending how light or dark they are. But we start out with a lights one. Now, it's very similar to a luminosity mask, but not quite the same. If you compare the two, you'll see some differences there, but they're very, very close. So this is lights 1. Let's see what lights 2 looks like. Lights 3. But let me go back to lights 1, because I want to show you something very important. You see this button right here? This is new in TK9. It's a gradient. Let's click on it. And this gradient shows you these will be your dark tones on the left and your light tones on the right. And you'll notice this is a lights 1, so you can see all these areas up to the right are getting the full adjustment. And then, as you can see, they graduate off down into the shadow tones, right? So that's a lights 1. Watch this when I go to lights 2. This is very informative. So here's lights 2. Do you notice how we're getting less of the lights now? These are the brightest lights up here, okay? Now we go to a lights 3, and you can see that moving over, right? Here's a 4. Here's a 5, and here is a 6. So it's just that very narrow area. But this gradient really helps you to see it. Now let's look at a darks 1. And now you can see the lights areas are being closed off. We're not seeing those, and we're transitioning into the dark tones. So that's darks 1. It's very broad, as you can see. It goes up into the midtones and slightly into the highlights. And now if I go to 2, see how it narrows down? Here's 3, here's 4. Here's darks 5 and darks 6, so that's very cool. But this also is very unique in the fact that it has zones here. Now we have zone 1, but you'll notice zone 1 encompasses dark 6, 5, and 4. So here's zone 1, Okay, right there. Now check out zone 2. But you notice it's blocking off the darkest darks, and it's only hitting this zonal area right in here. So between darks 3, 2, and 1. Now here's zone 3. It's midtones right between midtones 1, 2, and 3. And you can see it's right here in the middle here. And then we can go to zone 4. And as you can see, it's shifting over. And here is zone 5. And now we just have that little area. But let's go to the center at zone 3. But you see there is that range right there. Now you can see these sliders here, and you can adjust these sliders. So like this slider right here, if I start to take this and drag it into the left, watch that gradient down there. See how that gets tightened up as I come through here? So you can make fine-tuning adjustments here. So I can cut out more of the lighter areas. And now if I take this slider and start to drag it to the right, watch how this starts to move over this way, and I'll narrow the zone that way. So here we go. See that starting to move over? So we can learn a lot just by watching that. So I highly recommend that you do that. But you can simply just go and say, like, I want lights 1, and there's lights 1 or lights 2. Now you have all these adjustments just like you had in luminosity masks. In other words, we can click this button here for levels, and then I can lighten up all those tones if I take this highlight slider and drag it to the left, and take the shadow slider into the right, and I can tighten up. So we have all this flexibility, or the midtones we can adjust either way. So on my TK Friday videos, I show you how I do this stuff all the time, but I'm just showing you can do the same things here, because this is generating a mask. It's using Blend Diff, but it's generating a mask, okay? So say for instance, let me go to like darks 3. Say I want to darken up the dark tones, and you can see from the gradient that from the left side here, all these dark tones, and they'll graduate up into here, will be selected. Again, this button right here will apply that gradient down here, but you can also look right here, and you see the area in red. This is the area that we're targeting right in here, these darks 3. Okay, all these darks in this area will get adjustment. And it's the same as what you're seeing down here. Sometimes down here it's just a little bit easier to understand. It's a little more intuitive in my opinion. And to shut this off, you can click this button again or click it again to turn it on. Now, when you output a mask, you don't have to worry. It will not apply that to the mask, so don't worry about that. That will go away. Oh, and by the way, there's some new ways we can edit our mask inside of this button right here. I call this the hamburger button. So click on it, and we have burn and dodge tools and blur tools, invert, so things we can do in there as well. I'm not going to get into this today, but I just want you to know they're there. We'll be exploring those in future TK Fridays. Okay, let's test this out. I have a darks 3 targeting this range of dark tones. I'm going to output that to a curves adjustment layer, so I'm just going to click this button right here, and nothing happens here, right? Everything stays the same. But if I change this to a multiply blend mode, check out the image. Like magic, I just darkened up all those dark tones. Here's the before, and here's the after. So pretty cool, right? So that is how that works. Now let me show you something else. Let me delete this by clicking on the trash can. Let's come back in here to Blend Diff, and let's do the same thing. Let's go to darks 3. Now what I want to do is take this darks 3 and just put it on a curves adjustment layer as just Blend Diff on the layer. Now, if you make any adjustments here, they will not go with that, okay? So it only works with any of these buttons up here, darks, lights, midtones, zone, masks, or any slider adjustments you make, that's fine. But all you need to do is on any one of these output options here, hold your shift key down. And in my case, I'm going to do the curves again. So I'm holding shift and clicking on curves. And now we don't see a mask here, okay? And we don't see any change again, but watch. If I click on multiply, again, the same thing will happen. I'm darkening the dark tones. And that is doing it through Blend Diff. Now, if you can see the icon lets me know I have Blend Diff. So if I double click here, there's my Blend Diff adjustment right there. I'm going to cancel out of here. But the cool thing here is I can go back and edit this. So I can click this button now, and I could come in here, and I can take this highlight slider and start to drag it to the left. And in real time, you'll start to see changes take place. So watch the image as I drag this over. See it changing? Or if I drag it to the right, it's going to encompass more tones. You see that? More areas are getting darker. Or I can narrow it down this way. And you also have this double arrow here. Now you can change it to any color you want. Just Command or Control click it. You could change it to any color you want. I'm just going to click cancel, but let me turn it on. But you can see the areas in red that are getting targeted. So that's pretty cool, right? So watch, if I drag this to the right, you can see I'm encompassing more tones or less tones. And then when you're done, don't forget to shut that off because you don't want to have that red overlay on there. But that's something that you can do. And I don't want to get real deep here, but you can exclude darks 1 or 2, midtones 1 or 2, or lights 1 or 2. You can also save out presets for blend diff. I have an edit to do, so I'm not going real deep here. And then you can target certain colors. You can target 2 colors. You can exclude any one of these colors here. Think of it kind of as a color mask, but not as powerful. I'll take another tutorial and really dive deep into that. But for now, this is an introduction, okay? But as you can see, I can go and edit any blend if. Right now, here is the before and here's the after. That's pretty much the introduction to blend diff for now. But now we're going to do a short edit and just bring in some mask calculation with the combo and CX panel. And everything will be done with blend diff on layers except for one step that'll involve a color mask, working with the mask calculator. Moving on to the edit. Now don't forget to download the image as well as the PDF notes. I have Dropbox links below in the description. You have to click on more or show more to open up that description because YouTube hides that description. You have to open it up to see all these links and so on. Before I start, you'll notice down on my channels, I have a bunch of channels saved out here when I was coming up with the edit for this image. If you ever want to get rid of a bunch of channels, just click this button on the combo or this button on the CX panel, the trash can. That will delete any alpha channels that you have. So click that and bang, they are gone. So that's a really good tip for you. I'll start out by setting myself up for success, but with TK9, it is so much easier. Hold your Command or Control key down. I'm going to save out a sky and a foreground. Hold your Command or Control key down. Click on the sky button and that saves out a sky channel just like that. Continue to hold that Command or Control key down, double click sky. That'll invert it and save a foreground channel. Isn't that cool? If you want to deselect this, just click this button right here. You can see I have marching ants and you can see by my selection indicators that I have a selection. So click this button right here and you will deselect. Step 1 is so fast now with TK9. Now on to step 2. It's going to be a foreground balance and contrast utilizing blend diff. Now everything's going to be blend diff except I have one adjustment which will involve a color mask. So we're going to start out with the foreground. So we're going to click this button right here on the multi-mask panel to add a color grading tool. And now we're going to go to the combo CX mask calculator. Now here's the CX panel. You're going to find the calculator here on the combo panel here. I guess I'll just work from my CX panel. So let me click on this calculator and you notice I have a sky and a foreground. So what we want to do, we want to work with the foreground. So we'll click on foreground and now we can either intersect by clicking on this X or we can apply by clicking this button here. Either one will work. I'll just click apply and you'll see there's that foreground mask right there. And now we're going to go to blend diff. Now we have to X out of the color grading tool. Now, I haven't made any adjustments yet, but nothing would happen if I would have made an adjustment. But now we got to get to this button right here. So this is the Edit Layer Blend Diff button, so click on that. And all I want to do here is get a Midtones 3 to protect me from clipping shadows and highlights. So I'm going to click this button right here. You don't see any change, okay? But if I double click right here, you can see there are my adjustments right there for Midtones 3. I'm just going to click cancel. And by the way, you can see it up here. Now, I don't need this anymore, but I could go and adjust these sliders if I want to. These sliders up here are for highlights, and these are for shadows. I'm just going to X out of here, but I have Midtones 3, and that's what I want. And now I can click on my color grading tool again, and I'm just going to simply click on midtones and I'm going to lighten up the midtones a little bit. This may be a little different than what my notes say because I'm just kind of going a little faster here today. And what I want to do is also warm up the midtones a little bit. So I'm going to click about right around here and see how I warm that building up. And anything in the midtones warms up a little bit with this color grading tool. And now we're going to go to highlights. And I just want to open up the highlights to somewhere right about here. And I think that's good. So here's the before and here's the after. So that's the midtones. Next, we're going to move to the sky. Now, up at the multi-mask panel, we have the color grading tool, but there's a plus right here. And if you click this, we're going to add another color grading tool. So that's what we want. Now we're going to go back to the mask calculator. I'm going to go in the CX panel by clicking this button here. Not this button, that's for a mask. This button right here for a mask calculator. This time I want to click on sky. Now remember, I said I can either do an intersection or apply. This is apply, this is intersection, this is subtract, this is add, this is to output it as a selection, and this is to get rid of a channel, this button right here. If you have a channel highlighted and click this, you'll get rid of the channel. This time, let's intersect it, so I'll click this button right here, and you'll notice there is the sky right there. Our next step is to X out of the color grading tool, click on the Edit Blend Diff button, and all we need is a midtones 3, so click that, and there you can see there's the icon. If I double click this, there's my midtones 3. We can just click cancel out of here. We can X out of here, and then just grab your color grading tool, so click this button right here. And what I'll do is click on the midtone button and just darken up the midtones a little bit. Now I want to offset this blue with a little bit of yellow, so I'm just going to place my cursor right here and give it a click. And that just adds a little bit of yellow color grading. And then I'll click on highlights. And I just want to open up the highlights a little bit to somewhere right about here. Now here is the before and here is the after. The next thing I want to do is bring up the blue in these windows a little bit, just to pop them a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to use a color mask. So I'm going to X out the color grading tool. Nothing changes here. Click on the color mask button, and we want to choose a color in the window, like maybe right here, and click OK. And as you can see, it's selecting those windows. Let's take this brightness slider and drag it over to the right to really lighten up those windows, something like that. I think it's pretty good. Then you can adjust these sliders just to see if you can bring more in. I think that's pretty good right about there. Now what I want to do is something a little bit different here. I want to save this as a channel. So let's click on the save button here, and I'll call this, let's just call this blue, and click OK. And there we go. That's saved out as a channel called blue. And now I've made the mask, so I can X out of here. I only use that to generate a mask, which is now saved down here as blue. The next step is to get the object selection tool. Now I have mine set for lasso. I'm going to click on the drop down and change it to rectangle. I have sample all layers on and hard edge, and I'm just going to select that high mark building like this. You don't have to be very accurate here. Photoshop is very smart. It's done a great job. It's missed this area right in here, so I can hold my shift key down and see if I can bring this area in. Yeah, and that's good enough. It's only going to be targeting blue here. So there we go. So now I have my selection. So now what I can do with that is we can add this selection to a hue saturation adjustment layer by clicking this button right here. And there's that building right there. Now we're going to use the mask calculator on the CX or combo panel. So I'm going to click this button on my CX panel. And now I want to click on blue for my blue channel. But now I must do an intersection because I want to intersect that blue mask into that area that I selected with the object selection tool. So let's click the X. And look at that. Beautifully goes right in there. Now if we click this button right here, you can see there it is, right? Just selecting blue. Pretty darn cool if you ask me. So click this button again. And now what we can do is simply make an adjustment. So I'm going to take this saturation adjustment. Watch how the magic works as I start to drag this to the right. See that? I can just bring up some beautiful blue into those windows. Isn't that cool? And then I might just tone down the lightness just a little bit, like to like a -2. Now, if that's too much, I can pull that back a little bit. But I really want you to see that. Here is the before and here's the after. Isn't that cool? I can just make those windows just start to pop. The next thing I want to do is darken up this building right here. So again, we're still working with Blend Diff, and I'll use the color grading tool for this as well. But for now, we're going to come up here to this Blend Diff. So we're going to click on this, and I like this Blend Diff because we can see it in black and white, and I can really understand, you know, black will conceal, white will reveal, and it makes a lot of sense to me to see things in black and white. So this is kind of cool. And what I'm going to do is get this picker tool. This is really nice. You can, just like a zone mask, you have a picker. So click this button, and I'm going to pick some tone in this building, like right about here, and click OK. And see how it targets that right there? Now, I believe that's sitting around a zone 5, but I can take these adjustments and I can, and you can tell what zone it's in too. Like if you see these two buttons right here, it's between a 4 and a 3, I believe. I'm pretty sure this will correspond to this. Tony, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it does. So anyway, I can take the slider and drag it to the right, and see, that's not really helping me. It's messing around with the sky. I don't really care about the sky so much, but let me adjust this slider here and pull it in one way or the other. See, I can tighten that up a little bit so I can just get what I want. Or let me see, on my notes I had like a 5. Let me click 5 and see what happens here. So that's a 5. So no, I was not using a 5. Okay, so let me go back and click on this. And you notice it goes back to the color image again. And so let's click right here and click OK. But no, this is how I did it. I used the picker tool, and then I just, like I said, I think I just tightened this one up a little bit like that. Okay, now once I get that, I need to output this. Now, I don't want to output it as a layer mask. I want to output it as just blend if on a layer and on a color grading layer. So to do that, hold your shift key down and click on the color grading tool. That's all you have to do. And there you can see, if I double click here, you can see there's my setting right there. So click cancel. Okay, so there it is right there. Now I have to make some adjustments here, but I only want to target this building. So how can I do that? Well, you know, I can use the mask calculators on the combo or CX panel. So what I'm going to do at this point is, well, first I need to select this. So I have my object selection tool, and I'm just going to make a selection here. Now the object selection tool and TK9 are a marriage made in heaven. So there's the building right there. And now let's get my mask calculator. Again, I'm going to use the CX. I could use the combo, it doesn't matter, but click the mask calculator button. And now I have an active selection, so click on active selection. And now we need to intersect it by clicking X or apply it. This time I'll just apply it, and there it's applied right there, just like that. Now you can see I have a selection because of the selection indicator here in the multi-mask and here on the CX panel, but you can also see my marching ants down here. I don't need that selection, so I can click this button right here and get rid of the selection. And now it's just a simple matter of making an adjustment. So I'm going to start out with shadows, click on the shadow circle, and I want to darken up the shadow. So I'll take this slider and drag it to the left. Now notice if I make it extremely dark like this, it's not affecting those lights, right? Because if we look at the blend if, let me X out of here and click this button right here and click on the red overlay, you can see it's not targeting any of these light areas here. It's only targeting these dark areas. That's pretty cool, right? This overlay button can really help you out to see what is going on there. So I'm just going to X out of here for now and go back to the color grading tool and click on shadows again. Now that's way too dark. So I'm going to pull this back to maybe somewhere right around there. Then I'm going to go to midtones. I'm not going to adjust midtones, but all I want to do is just color grade this a little more red. So I'm going to click maybe right around here and see, add that little bit of red there. Isn't that cool? Here's the before and here's the after. Now, if you feel this saturation on this building is too strong, what you can do, let's X out of the color grading tool. You can add a hue saturation adjustment layer, and then you could clip it by clicking on this paper clip, and it will just target that building right there. See, watch, I can just take the color off that building. I could add more saturation, less saturation, whatever you want. In this case, originally I added a little less saturation, but this time I'm just going to add just a tiny touch more saturation. So here's before and here's after, just a little bit, just not much, you can hardly even tell. 2 steps and we're done. Okay, this building over here on the left seems a little light, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this blend if again for mask generation, and I'm going to go through my lights and try to target this. So there's lights 1, here's lights 2, and here's lights 3. I'm trying to really hit this area right here. I want it to be the lightest, and this is not getting as much of an adjustment. So I think that's going to be good. I want to output it to a color grading tool with blend if on the layer. So I'm going to hold my shift key down and click on the color grading tool, and there it is. If I double click here, you can see there's my blend if adjustment. I'm just going to click cancel. And now with the object selection tool, I'm going to see if I can grab just this building over here. And yeah, it just grabs it like that. Now with the combo or CX panel, I'll use the mask calculator again. Active selection. This time I'll intersect it. Intersect or apply. Either one will work. I'll just intersect it, and there it is right there. Now I don't need the selection, so I can click this button to deselect. Put this in the multiply blend mode by clicking this button right here, and it darkens it up. And here is the before, and here is the after. And that's pretty good, but I think I can do better. So what I'll do is let me click on the midtone button and let me pull back on the midtones to somewhere right around here. See, and it darkens up here a little bit. But what I want to also do is offset some of this yellow color that I believe is getting reflected maybe off another building. So let me go ahead and color grade it a little bit more towards blue, like this way. Might be too much, maybe right about here. Try that. That looks pretty good. And now let me go to highlights, and I want to pull back on the highlights a little bit to maybe somewhere right about there. I think that looks pretty good. Here is the before, and here is the after. Again, the before and the after. Now let's say I don't want the effect on this section of the building here. Let me show you what I can do. With my object selection tool, let me see if I can just come down and grab this side like this. Yeah, and see that selects that right there. Now I can use my mask calculator again, and this time what we'll do is let's click on the mask calculator button on either the combo or CX. I have an active selection, so I'm going to click that, and this time I want to subtract this area off. Okay, so we'll click the subtract button, and that takes it off. Now if we look at the mask by clicking this button right here, you can see where I subtracted that off. Isn't that cool? I love this combo and CX mask calculator. I think it's really awesome. So now I don't need the selection. I can click this deselect button. So now here's my before and here's my after. So pretty cool. And don't forget, you can always pull back in the opacity if you've gone too far. The last thing I want to do is add a vignette and show you how we can protect the darkest shadows with Blend Diff. And I've always done this manually with Blend Diff, but I'm going to show you how easy it is with TK9. So let's grab an action. So I'm going to click on my TK action button. Let's just grab a basic vignette, and Gaussian blur, I always take it just the way it is. Click OK, and there's my vignette. Here's my before and here's after. And I believe Tony tweaked this. It's now at 30% instead of 50%. So if you want it stronger, you can take the opacity and take it up more. But here's how we can protect shadows, and this is really cool. Right now I have this color grading tool here, so we'll just X out of it. Nothing will change. Click on this Edit Blend Diff button and check it out. Just go to these shadow sliders right here. I'm just going to take this top slider, and I'm going to drag it to the right, over to right about here. Now you can see it in real time what is actually happening here when I release the slider. When you drag it, nothing happens to you. Release the slider, but you can see how it's protecting the deepest shadows. Now, if I click this red overlay, you can see these are the areas it's getting. But as I start dragging this over, you can see how it's not getting these really dark shadow areas down in here. But I want some of that darkness to have a vignette, but I just want to protect the deepest shadow, so I'm going to pull it over to about here. Let's shut off the red overlay. Now here is the before and here's the after. So no longer do we have to double click and go in and adjust those blend diff sliders manually. This is a real big time saver. And if you'll note, all the red area will be getting the vignette, but see these dark shadows, see the black here? That's the protected dark shadow area. So pretty cool. The gradient that you see here is very, very helpful to know what is going on with this blend diff. Well, let's take a look. Here's the overall before, and here's the after. All done basically with Blend Diff and one color mask and the new combo and CX calculators. Well, there it is, everyone. Another TK Friday comes to a close. I hope you're enjoying the new TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, please give it a like, share it with your friend, and if you're not yet a subscriber, please subscribe and click that bell notification. Make sure you click all so you receive all the notifications. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I will see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing!